I'm now happy to introduce California State Librarian Stacey Aldrich and today's presenters, Keiji Uye and Pauline Mangrum.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for taking time to join us to talk about the benchmark project that we're doing here in California. It is the Gates Foundation Public Access Technology Benchmark Project, and what I wanted to do today was just give you a quick overview to get everybody back on the same page about this project, and then we're going to have KG and Pauline talk a little bit about the information that we've already gathered through some of the forums that we've had throughout the state around the public access benchmarks. So today we are going to again talk about what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is thinking about in terms of these benchmarks and California's role, and then we'll have the discussion questions and what we've learned so far, and we want to get your feedback on what we've already learned, and then a Q&A. So the first piece is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So many of you have already received funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to support PCs in your libraries, and then maybe some training, and then most recently the online broadband, Opportunity Online Broadband process that we went through, gosh, it's almost been 2 years, to increase connectivity within libraries around the state. And so basically the Gates Foundation was focusing on building the technical foundations for libraries to support public access in their communities. And as they were looking at what their next steps were, they really looked at all of the things that they had been working on and trying to figure out if they should continue to invest in actual equipment and technology, or should they invest in libraries' advocacy abilities. And so what they are really concerned about is ensuring that there's sustainable access to public access technologies through libraries. And so this next phase of where they're putting their energy and their dollars is around creating these public access technology benchmarks. And these are designed to really, or are being designed to really help libraries articulate the value and the role of libraries and connectivity and why it's important in their communities, so that there can be sustained investment and access within their communities. And the benchmark goals, as you can see on the screen, is really a tangible set of benchmarks designed to help local leaders use technology to support local community priorities and deliver library programs. And it really is just that. They're working to create something that is a tool that can be used to have conversations in your community that set some standards on what kinds of technology is really needed in libraries. And there currently is a group that is working there from all across the country to develop these benchmarks. And I'm going to segue into the next slide here, which are all the people who are participating in this national process. It is a cast of thousands, like Ben-Hur, and we have the Urban Libraries Council, who is the lead facilitator in trying to connect all of the hundreds of people who are working on this project. There are pilot facilitators. The International City County Management Association, or ICMA, is really working with pilot states, which I'll talk about in just a second. And then California, Texas, and Oklahoma are the pilot states, and also the people looking at how we will implement these benchmarks nationally, along with LYRASIS, ALA's OITP office, PLA, the TechSoup Group, Web, Junction, University of Maryland, and the University of Washington are also a part of the implementation of these benchmarks and the testing. And then from the foundation, we have Jamie Horde, who is leading this project. And if we look at our actual role in California, there are two things that are happening in California right now. One, we wrote a grant and received about $50,000 to figure out through forums, which we've had over the past 2 weeks, and this webinar, to figure out what is it going to take in order for California to implement benchmarks or actually use whatever is developed. And so that's what we've been asking over the past couple weeks. Now the challenge has been we don't know what the benchmarks are, and so we have to imagine that these are going to be a set of tools or guidelines or baseline that we can use in order to have good conversations in our communities around why it's important to have and invest in public access technology in our libraries. And so what's happening at the national level is there's a group that's a working group that are right now, as we speak, developing the benchmarks. And then there's a roundtable, and the state library is a part of the roundtable. The roundtable is overseeing the work that's being done by the work group. And that work group is going to have their first draft of these benchmarks done by August 10th, which is when I will be flying to Chicago and sitting with the roundtable, and we'll be reviewing the first round of the benchmarks that have been produced. One of the things that they've been thinking about as they've been putting these benchmarks together is that there would be three sort of tiers, like steps for libraries to fall in. There's the foundation level, so you have the basics, and then the next step would be transformational, meaning you're moving into more advanced access and resources for your community. And then there would be the innovators at the top step. And so the way the benchmarks are falling is somewhere within those steps, and then also not only around, say, the number of PCs that you might have, but also the types of programming that you're doing in your community that really is helping to build digital literacy or provide outcomes that relate to education or workforce development. So again, it's looking at technology and the difference that it's making to your community in a variety of areas. So it's been an interesting conversation without actually having benchmarks to show or share with people, but if we were to imagine having the perfect tool in order to have a good conversation in our community, what would that look like? And that's what they're currently working on. So along with the benchmark roundtable and what is it that we need in order for California, this is our opportunity to have a say in how we'll use these benchmarks. We also have two pilot libraries. The Salinas Public Library and the Sacramento Public Library are going to be the first of 8 libraries across the country, 2 in Oklahoma, 2 in Texas, and then there are 2 more, I believe, in North Carolina, that are going to pilot the first round of the benchmarks. And so currently the ICMA has been meeting with these communities and working with not only the libraries, but who are the other key stakeholders, because whatever they're creating, they want to make sure that it's easy, but that it also resonates with the decision makers within the community. So those pilot libraries are supposed to begin piloting in September. That's the targeted timeline right now, with a spring or further out launch for everyone. So those are the 2 pilot libraries. So what we've done, again, is we've had 2 focus groups in California. We had one in Southern California, and last week one up here in Sacramento. And we had a little over 50 people from around the state join us to talk about some questions that we had around how could we use these benchmarks in California. And the information that we're receiving from you all is helping us as we look at the benchmarks that are being created, but also helping us filter information up to the national level around what's important as they develop these benchmarks. And we will also use your feedback as a way to build a next grant with the Gates Foundation, which will be a statewide implementation and adoption plan. And so the Gates Foundation will fund marketing, communications, and also any types of tools that are needed to support the implementation of these benchmarks. So that's the big 747 level and what we're working on. And today we have, again, KGOA and Pauline Milgram to talk about what came out of our sessions, and then to check in with you based on the conversations we had in the sessions to figure out if we actually are on the right track or are we missing some pieces that we want to make sure that we include in the conversation. And then there will also be later on a link to an online survey where you can provide further information. And again, any library that participates in that survey will be entered into a drawing to win free training for info people. So we really appreciate the time that you're taking out today to talk with us about these benchmarks. And now I'm going to turn it over to KG.
This is Pauline Mingram with OA Mingram Consulting. We're going to take you through the 8 questions and a compilation of responses that we had from the focus groups. You may comment or put in any questions or concerns you have in the chat box. The first question that we had was, how could your library benefit from public technology access benchmarks? The focus groups said these would validate library mission goals and services, evaluate and set standards for service, could be used for marketing, advocacy, and communication tool, telling stories to funders, supporters, and users, help with internal resource allocation of staff, space, equipment, and could be used for grants and funding. We can have about 4 or 5 minutes for each of these if you'd like to write in your comments or if you have any questions.
Actually, I have a question. This is KGOA. In the chat box I saw from Sarah that there was an echo. Did it go away or did it come back? Oh, Info People is working with her. Okay. Any other comments on this first question? Move to the next one then.
Okay, we'll move to question 2. What are the challenges, issues, and or barriers to the adoption and implementation of benchmarks? The focus group said, will the benchmarks be relevant and easy to use, qualitative as well as quantitative? The benchmarks need to be scalable and flexible for diverse communities. Some groups had a concern for privacy in information gathering. Will there be money and training to assist in reaching the benchmarks? And will the benchmarks be able to adapt to constantly changing technology?
I see that we have a question from Melinda about what about trend setting for future services? Yes, that was something that was mentioned actually in both focus groups. It may come up later in the other questions, but it is something that we've captured. What we did was we took the 2 focus groups. There were probably a total of about 60 people. And then we took sort of the top 5 comments that were repeated. So when you get to the online survey, you will see other choices that you can agree or disagree with, and it does include trend setting. So that was a specific comment that came out of the focus groups. Ready to go on?
Okay, let's go on to question 3. What would encourage you and your community to use the benchmarks? The focus group said grants, funding, and training, benefits to the community, easy to gather, use, and communicate the statistics, a balance of visuals and numbers, documentation for advocacy and evidence of success, frameworks such as templates for how to use the community stakeholders, for how to use with community stakeholders, compared to other organizations, and tangible steps to improve service, lobbying by Gates, ICMA, and other advocates. Any questions, comments, additions? Okay, let's go on to question 4. What tools would support your use of the benchmarks? The focus group said software, hardware application to easily gather information, analyze, and share, training on how to leverage outcome data from the benchmarks, a dashboard reporting and planning tool so that you could use it, and if you said, well, if I added X or I added Y, what would be the outcome for that benchmark? Marketing and effective public relations tool, easy to customize, marketing in a box. So you could have some already written tools in the box that were easy for you to customize and use to market the benchmarks. Automated reporting capabilities and coordination with required reports, such as the State Library report. Any additions or questions to this question?
Hi, this is KG OA, the other part of OA Mingram Consulting. And I'm actually pleased that there aren't lots of questions, there are a few. That means the focus groups really did a good job in expressing some of the concerns around each of these questions. So we've got a couple more, and let's go through them now. How would a benchmark tool help you determine what services to provide or which current services to change? The focus group said help establish a hierarchy of resources, determine programs, space use, collaborations, and partnerships. Trend spotting, that's one of the chat questions we had. Comparison with other libraries. Program evaluation and justification for what to keep, change, or delete. Help with strategic planning and long-term goals. We have a question after a certain amount of time, would you have a best practices comparison? Yes, that was actually one of the other comments, that people wanted to see success stories and best practices and actually how to connect up with an example of a best practice so that you could connect with that library who was doing something that you thought that you might want to emulate or at least find out more about it. Moving on, the next question is, how could you use the benchmarks as leverage with decision makers, patrons, partners, and others? And the focus groups commented that marketing, justification, and validation for funding, staffing, and programs, industry standards that would appeal to business, demonstrate cost effectiveness, comparison with other jurisdictions, and validate choices around technology. I think one of the other comments was learning what programs you might want to let go. Other questions on that one? We can go back to any of them, too, if they occur to you after we've moved on. Next question. What questions do you think you will get about the benchmarks from decision makers, staff, union, and others? And the focus group said, why should we participate? How does this benefit me, the library, and the community? Who created these benchmarks? Why are they relevant? Is this an unfunded mandate? What is the cost and who pays? Who else is participating, and is their information relevant to me? Does this change the MOU, job description, or take away jobs. And we have a comment in the chat group that this would help to identify community organizations and city and county agencies for partnerships. And that actually was brought up also by the focus groups. In particular, anything outside of the library community would be very helpful for partnerships and give us some information and a vocabulary and some strong data that we could link with these other community organizations and government partnerships. Okay. How likely will your library be to participate in the benchmark program? And there were some caveats to this answer. The focus group said they need to see the benchmarks before making a decision. And as you heard Stacy comment that they're coming together, but we're trying to do these various steps simultaneously, and we probably will see some things very soon. Yes, if it fits the goals and is efficient and is simple to understand and implement. Yes, if it requires minimal training. Yes, if it has an impact and helps focus on services. And it must be sustainable for community after grant funds end. We have another comment, and another possible question that might be answered is how the library goals further the goals of the city and county library. That refers to the question before, and I think that that's one of the that is one of the other comments that that we will capture and put in our report. That's a good comment, and I think the focus groups did mention that it might not have been in our top 5.
Somebody's going to say something about the written, another additional opportunity. So you know that these questions are going to also be in the survey. So if there was something you wanted to mention, you can go into the survey, and there's also a place in the survey for you to add comments. So if you think of something after this, you might want to go ahead with the survey.
The other thing that we wanted to mention, this additional input opportunity, is that Stacy has invited through the public library directors, actually all staff to participate in the online survey, including those of you who have been part of the webinar. And again, as a special thank you for those libraries that do participate in the online survey, you will be given an opportunity to win a free contract workshop from InfoPeople. The survey link will be mailed out after the webinar today, and it will be open until August 2nd. And we really do need, so that Stacy has information when she goes back to meet with the benchmark folks, we really do need the survey responses within this week. So we encourage you to go to the online survey. It has not the top 5 comments, but it has many of the comments from the focus groups, and you will be able to indicate agree, disagree, and also to put in some additional comments that we will capture. And of course, you do have this opportunity to win the InfoPeople contract workshop, which I think is really a marvelous opportunity for everyone.
Going back to your follow-up, Melinda, I intended the city, county, and the library. One of the comments that came up was using these benchmarks to also show other city and county goals, such as, reducing crime and increasing real estate values. So so I think we're also covering that. I hope that's what you meant.
This is Stacy again. I just wanted to reiterate two things that I did not mention in my introduction that did come up throughout the presentation, but this is not going to be a mandatory process. It is going to be voluntary. The Gates Foundation is hoping to encourage people to move into the innovative side of these benchmarks by providing grants for those libraries that meet the higher benchmark levels. So there is a carrot from the Gates Foundation for the usage of these benchmarks as well. And we're hoping from the state level that if we have as many people as possible participating, it also helps us have a better conversation at the state level in terms of public access technologies as well.
Okay, are there any other questions at this time or anything else you want to put into the chat mode? I'm going to hand this back to info people so that they could remind you of where you can get a copy of this webinar, and you do see the link there for the online survey. So again, on behalf of the California State Library, I want to thank you for participating in this webinar. Also, those people who were in the focus groups were extremely helpful. They each spent a whole day with us and the state librarian on this topic. So again, on behalf of the California State Library and our state librarian, Stacy Aldrich, and our technical consultants, info people, OA Mingrib, thanks you for your participation.
Thank you.
And thanks, everybody. We are archiving today's presentation, so if you lost sound or anything, you can listen to it again. I put the SurveyMonkey link in the text chat, but I think Stacy's going to send out an email, or we will, to CALIX to get as many people as possible to complete the survey. And there will also be a link on the webinar page where the archive is. We'll send all those links out after the webinar, so you'll have a chance to do it. Again, the survey will be open until August 2nd, and hopefully as many people as possible can fill it out. Anything else, Stacy?
No, I think that's it. Thank you very much, everyone.